Okay. The next session is a very interesting one. We call it Hacking the Brain. We mean the human biological brain. For leading this session, I will call Yanki Margalit. He is an entrepreneur. He calls himself social entrepreneur. And among other things, he is also the chairman of SpaceIL, which has nothing to do with cyber, but this is an initiative to land a small spacecraft on the moon. Yanki, please.
Thank you very much, Itzik, and good afternoon. This session is going to be totally different from what you have seen so far. We are not going to talk about cybersecurity. We're not going to talk about perimeter systems. We're not going to talk about the human factor. But in many ways, we are going to deal with the humans themselves. We are going to have 4 amazing speakers with us today, and all of them are in between computers, security, biology, brain hacking. They are all in between those areas. And I truly believe it's about time we address the biological and the electronic on the same level, especially when you're talking about hacking, especially when you're talking about security. So we're going to see today Professor Natan Intrator, Dr. Roy Cezana, Dr. Yossi Yovel, and Professor Moran Cerf. You're going to hear stories. You're going to hear stories about computers, mice, dogs, bats, people, and crimes. The session is all about brain hacking, but you should extend the vision to biological hacking in general. It's all under the human biological hacking. I think that we come close to realizing that we cannot totally distinguish between these 2 fronts. And I would urge you to think that within the next several years, we are going to see specific attacks which are IT-oriented on human brain soft perimeters. So we should address that. I believe the 2 computing platforms are competing and integrating one with another. One computing platform is the one that we have built, the computers, the systems, the software. The other computing platform is being built for the last 4 billion years. And now is the time to look at them together and see what the combination is going to look like. Within this session, we're going to have an hour discussion here. Within this session, we're going to show you a live demo. Trust me, that live demo is going to be extremely meaningful. It has a story to it, but I will not steal the story. Wait for the live demo. We'll see it later on. My last statement before we start the presentations is that I hope this session today will be a call for action for you, the experts, you, the cyber people, to understand that cybersecurity is not just about ones and zeros. Cybersecurity is becoming also A, T, C, G, and neural connections. And we should extend our language, we should extend our vision, and deal not just with the digital, but also, again, with the biological. As our first speaker today, hopefully, is here with us, I'd like to invite Dr. Yossi Yovel. Just wave your hand, tell us that you're here. Yeah, Yossi is here. Let me tell you a few things about Yossi. Yossi was graduated from the Tel Aviv University with 2 bachelor degrees, one in biology and one in physics. He is aiming to decipher animal behavior. Since then, he has been on the edge of biology and computer science and physics. The scientific achievement that Yossi is mostly proud of is the winning of the Red Bull contest, in which an egg has to be dropped from 15 meters without breaking it. He's very proud to tell me that his team won against all the engineers. This is for you, the engineers at the audience. So, Yossi, please join us.
Hi, everybody. Okay, can I see my presentation? Or do I need to go to the next slide? Okay, here it is.
Yeah, so I'm Yossi Yovel, Tel Aviv University, Department of Zoology, Sagol School of Neuroscience, and I think that even within this session my talk will be a little bit eccentric because I'm going to talk about the bat brain. I will divide my talk into 3 parts. First, I will talk about how we scientists hack the bat brain. Then I will try to tell you how bats hack other bats' brain. And finally, I will give you a brief taste of how insects hack bats' brains. But before I do all of this, I need to give you a brief introduction into bats. You all know that bats are mammals, the only flying mammals, one of 2 groups of mammals that use sonar along with dolphins. What many of you might not know is how diverse, how variable bats are. You can see here some examples of over 1,000 species. Where's my mouse? Over the 1,000, no pointer, okay. Over 1,000 species of bats that exist on the globe, accounting for something between 20 and 25% of mammalian species. So if I try to pose the challenge facing the bat's brain from the point of view of an engineer, this is what it looks like more or less. Bats emit sound. Sound, usually ultrasound, travels through the environment. Sound waves, here you can see the sound waves. Yeah, I cannot see them here. Sound waves impinge or hit anything in the environment, branches, leaves, whatever. Echoes are reflected back to the bat's brain. You can see what I depict up there are 2 stochastic superposition signals of many, many echoes summed up together. I depict 2 of them because the bat has 2 antennae, 2 ears. Each of them receives a different signal. And what the bat's brain has to do is to somehow determine that you see that echo up there that I depicted by a red arrow, that this echo is an echo of a moth and not an echo of a leaf, for instance, or an echo of a branch. Now, the bat's brain then needs to classify this moth. It has to decide that this is an edible moth and not a poisonous moth, for instance. And finally, it has to track this moth within highly dense vegetation. So humans using radar are doing this maybe since 50 years, but bats' brain have been doing this since 50 million years. So we're talking about 50 million years of evolution, of engineering. And some of the bats that can do this are as small as 1 to 2 grams. That's their total weight, okay? So the brain of this bat is something like 100 milligrams, far smaller than anything that we can design or build. So I talked a lot, and let me now show you a few images of what bats can do with this amazing biosonar system. Okay, so you were supposed to hear a dramatic, romantic, there it is. So what you see here is a bat intercepting a moth. You are all impressed by the iron dome because it can intercept very small objects, very small rockets. Some bat can intercept objects that are as small as 1 millimeter in diameter, okay, midgets or mosquitoes, moving in a very difficult, unpredictable manner. What you see here is a bat extracting a fish from water using its biosonar system. All I'm showing you bats can do also in complete darkness when only using biosonar. This is a bat that drinks nectar out of a cactus flower. These flowers, notice they have a very special shape. They're optimal acoustic reflectors. The cactus wants to be found by the bats because the bats pollinate this cacti. So this is a story of co-evolution between the cactus and the bat. Next you will see bats with very special antennae. Many bats have evolved these as antennae in order to improve their biosonar, something we study in the lab. Here is the problem I described before. How can the bat know that this is a spider and not a leaf? How does it do this classification task? Another classical problem in radar, jamming avoidance. Thousands of bats flying together, all using the same frequencies more or less, without interfering with each other's sonar. And this last image was taken in our lab just to remind you that these are flying mammals. Look how maneuverable they are. This bat is going to attack that insect, that larva that we hung for it in the lab, with a flight that is very, very different from that of birds. Okay, so I hope I convinced you that bats are fascinating, and now I will try to tell you a little bit about how we hack their brain, how do we try to understand how can they do these things. So the first thing I want to present is a paradigm, an approach to simply ask the bat what are its limits. So this is done in the laboratory using highly controlled experiments in which we can train a bat to do something very specific. So let's imagine that I want to measure how accurately a bat can measure distance. I can train a bat, I can present two objects to the bat and train it to crawl to the closer among the two. And then I can bring these two objects closer and closer until the bat starts making mistakes. This is more or less the limit of its spatial accuracy. You can see a paradigm of this sort running in our lab. You will see the bat sitting at the edge of this. We call this a Y platform. The bat is now hearing one echo from one side, another echo from the other side. The echoes are ultrasonic. The bat made the right decision, and therefore it is now receiving reward. All you need to do is give it a mealworm, and it will be happy. Okay, so you could not hear the echoes because they're ultrasonic. That's an important point. But this is how I can run extremely controlled experiments to test what are the limits of the bat. By the way, I don't really need to present objects. I can run virtual reality experiments. All I need to do is to play back an object, and the bat perceives it as if there is an object in front of it. So using such experiments over 60 years ago already, people have shown that bats have this remarkable spatial acuity that allows them to measure distance, to what we call to do ranging, with an accuracy of less than 1 millimeter, okay, on the order of 100 microns. Some people will even say an order of magnitude better, far better than anything we can explain based on their brain capabilities. So this was one sort of approach that we use. But what I want to argue is that the biggest advantage when trying to hack the bat's brain is the fact that unlike humans, unlike rats, we do not need to use electrodes in order to record their sensory perception. And this is thanks to the fact that bats emit sound in order to perceive the environment. So you can imagine a scientist looking at a rat running through some arena, and this scientist is dying to know what is its rat attending, okay? Where is it focusing its sensory attention? When did it notice that something new has occurred? In bats, all I need to do in order to study this is to use microphones, okay? So what you will see now on the right is a bat flying towards an object. This was a bat that was trained to land on an object in our flight room. But what's going on the left is much more interesting. What you see in blue is the bat flying. In gray, you see the object where the bat is going to land, and you see these black lines that are constantly appearing to the right and to the left. Okay? These lines are actually the sonar beams of the bat. So you should imagine the sonar being something like a flashlight, okay? A flashlight of sound coming out of the bat's mouth. And notice how this bat is directing its sensory attention, and how I, just by recording it with an array of microphones, can say exactly where is it directing its sensory attention, what is it attending, how many bits of information did it collect before making a sensory decision. Okay, so this is something very unique about bats. Okay, so I have showed you how we can say what are the bats attending, but let me now show you how we can say what the bats are doing just by recording their sound. But before I explain this, I need to teach you to read this, what we call spectrogram over here. It's a kind of a representation of sound. So you have time on the x-axis, and you have frequency on the y-axis, and each of these blobs that you see over there is one sonar signal of a bat. Okay, so the frequencies are much higher for you to hear, but if you could hear them, it would sound, each of them would sound something like eep, right? They start from high frequency and go to low frequency. You can see it over there. Unfortunately, I don't have a pointer. And what you can notice is that the sequence, things are happening along this sequence of calls. Okay, if I try to play the whole sequence, notice how the calls become closer and closer in time. So it's something like eep, 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 right? And I want you to pay attention to two things that are very unique to bats and very different from our sensory modalities. One is what I already said. The bat is shortening the interval between two calls. It is actually adjusting its temporal resolution, the rate in which it acquires information on the environment, something that we cannot do using vision or any other sensory modality that we have. The second thing I want you to notice is that the signals along this approach are very, very different. By the way, I did not say this is a bat attacking a prey. Okay? Whenever I see one of these, I know my bat is attacking prey. That's why the temporal resolution is increasing. Below this sequence, I pointed out two signals, which you can see up there with the asterisks, with the stars. And you can see that they are very different. The signal on the left is long and narrow-banded. The signal on the right is short and wide-banded. And without going into the physics, I will tell you that these two signals provide a different spatial resolution. Okay? The signal on the left allows the bat to see far, but not very accurate, while the signal on the right allows the bat to see very, very accurately, but limits the range. So the bat has the ability, imagine this telephoto lens in your eye, and the bat has the ability to zoom in or out according to the sensory representation that it's trying to achieve, something that we cannot do. Okay, so this was a long introduction to how we scientists hack the bat's brain. And now I will show you how do we study how other bats hack how bats hack other bats' brains. So what you see up here, as I told you, I can record one of these, and I know what my bat is doing. My bat is now attacking prey. But obviously, this is what we call public information. Other bats around also know that this bat is now attacking prey. And of course, we were curious to know whether bats use this. Okay, this information. So I call this the Bamba effect, right? You all know this. You're sitting in a dark theater, in a dark cinema, and somebody opens a bag of chips, a bag of Bamba. Everybody in the theater now knows immediately that somebody over there is eating Bamba. Okay? So let's see if bats use this. In order to study this, we wanted to work on wild bats, not on bats in the laboratory. So we had to develop miniature technology that can be mounted on bats. Okay, so what you see here is one of the smallest GPS devices in the world. Here it is, mounted on an Egyptian fruit bat. This is an Egyptian fruit bat. You all know it. It sits on your houses, on your cars, whatever. And here you see our neurosensor mounted on the same bat. This sensor has a GPS, has a microphone, has a camera, has an accelerometer, and even has the ability to record EEG signals, so brain waves. Now, when you mount this device on a bat, for instance, in this case, this is a bat called Rhinopoma. You can see its trajectory flying above the Lake of Galilee. And I need to wrap up, so I will be a little bit short, but I will tell you that by recording its audio over here, I can tell you exactly when this bat is intercepting prey. You can see those dark flags. And exactly whenever this bat is interacting with another bat. And using this technology, we were able to show that the bats are performing some sort of what I would call a swarming intelligence approach. Okay, so the bats are intentionally keeping short distances from each other in order to allow eavesdropping on each other, in order to all together function as an array of multiple sensors, which allows them to make prey detection more efficient. The last thing I want to show you, the last 20 seconds of my talk, have to do with insects' brains. Until now, we were talking about insects as this something passive in the environment that the bat just intercepts. But no, insects also went through an evolution of 50 or more actually than 50 million years. Many insects developed the ability to hear bats, to hear sound. And lately, it has been shown that some moths can even use electronic warfare. They can actually emit sound to jam bats. Okay, what you will see in this movie is a bat attacking a moth. And you will hear the bat, choop, choop, you already recognize this. And at some point you will hear this wideband noise, something like zzz. And this is emitted by the insect, actually. Okay, and look what happens when the insect is emitting this, when the insect is emitting this signal. So this is you hear this zzz. Look what happens. So this is a 100 microgram brain beating a 100 milligram brain. Maybe it's similar to that, in your world, to that 16-year-old kid who is hacking the highly secure computer of the NSA. I'm not sure what's the right metaphor. But this is just to show you that we should never underestimate small brains. Finally, I need to thank a lot of students who had to do with this data, collected this data, and actually allow me to stand here today. Thank you very much.